The miracle of fascination. Botswana is a dry and dusty land. 3/4 of its topography is the Kalahari Desert. Living in Botswana, we know what it is like to wait and wait expectantly for the rain. We know that lying dormant in the hard, parched red earth are seeds that will change the landscape from barren and apparently devoid of life to lush green in a matter of weeks after good rains. The miracle story of fascination is like this: seeds lying dormant in a spiritual barrenness, waiting expectantly for the reviving showers of the Holy Spirit. The seed of fascination was planted some 7 years ago, a concept that was planted in the heart of Dr. Akin Adedoyan, an elder of Open Baptist Church and a lecturer at the University of Botswana. It was planted in the year 2000 out of concern for the teenage pregnancy rate on the university campus. At the end of the first semester in 2001, there were 32 pregnancies reported among the freshman students. The challenge? What could the church do to address this ongoing problem? Open Baptist reached out to welcome first-year students onto the campus and into the church, and the then Vice-Chancellor of the university encouraged this initiative. For the next 3 years there were a number of challenges facing Open Baptist, including the resignation of their long-standing pastor and the search for a new one. Little evident growth of this little seed occurred, but as with a seed, the potential does not diminish with time. The need to reach out to the youth of Botswana remained an ongoing priority in the minds of the leadership. But as we all know, there can be no germination and no growth of a seed without rain. With hindsight, we can see that this seed needed to remain dormant until the true and lasting rains of the Holy Spirit and God's perfect timing came together. In September 2005, Norman Schaefer took up the position as senior pastor of Open Baptist. At one of his very first meetings with the elders, he asked, "What are the challenges facing this country?" Akin shared his vision, which had developed into reaching out a tier lower than the university to students of the senior secondary schools. He also had in mind the need to use Christian university students during their long and unproductive winter break. That night, Pastor Norman didn't sleep. The seed of fascination, which had been lying dormant for 5 long years, germinated. The plan? To train Christian undergraduates to do peer mentoring, promoting an abstinence lifestyle in the senior secondary schools. As with the germination of any seed, the initial growth is phenomenal. You can see it on a daily basis. So too with fascination. KG, a graduate from the University of Botswana, was employed to start recruiting volunteers for the program. The biggest hurdle facing this brand new vision was to get the permission of the Ministry of Education to work in the government schools. The idea was presented and looked upon favorably, but approval was another story. Many other non-governmental organizations had already approached the ministry with grandiose ideas to halt the spread of HIV/AIDS in Botswana, but few had effectively delivered. The challenge was to convince them that this vision was new, different, and would work. In the meantime, the tender plant of fascination partnered with Baptist Mission, who already had an outreach on the university campus. It was a struggling ministry since the university had banned all religious organizations on the campus. The vision of fascination perfectly dovetailed with their vision. Missionaries Randy and Kitty Trail agreed to run the training of the volunteers, named the School of Discipleship. When something is God ordained, we are guaranteed that God will come through for us. But He does often ask us to step out in faith. Time was marching on, and the church made the decision to go ahead with training the volunteers, even if they did not receive permission to work in the schools. Permission to work in the schools was granted just days before the School of Discipleship began. 24 volunteers were trained and dispatched to peer mentor in 8 schools for 5 weeks. The response from the volunteers, students in the school and school staff was overwhelming. Have you ever noticed, after torrential rain, that runoff water becomes little streams? Little streams run together to form rivers, and the river can soon flood an area. This is the story of the outpouring of God's blessing and grace on Face the Nation. Little streams became rivers, and the river of hope and the message that lifestyle change is possible through Jesus is flooding the land. Shortly before the launch of Face the Nation, 2006, the Time team visited from the United States under the leadership of Dick Timossian. Pastor Norman had had a long association with Time whilst ministering in South Africa. But allow me to backtrack a little. In the USA, a number of mega churches started to catch on to the vision of how the HIV/AIDS pandemic in Africa could be addressed if US and African churches worked together. The organization Churches Together was formed. Serving as a pioneer on this organization and as a trustee of Time was Donna Chisholm. In 2006, Donna was assigned to do a foreign mission trip and opted to come in March 2006 to Botswana, just when Face the Nation was getting underway. The joining of random dots to make a beautiful picture of partnerships was about to begin. The joining together of many little streams was about to form a river. Donna felt an immediate connection when she came to Botswana. This was fueled by her connection with Churches Together and her concern about the HIV/AIDS pandemic in Botswana. She also felt an immediate connection with Pastor Norman and his wife Gabi. This was ignited when they shared with her the vision of Face the Nation. Donna, under the umbrella of Time, got on her steam train and hasn't got off. Back in the US, Churches Together had a meeting. Donna shared the potential success if churches in the USA would come together and partner with Open Baptist Church. At that meeting, she was encouraged to speak to Johnson Ferry Baptist Church. Johnson Ferry had been led to minister in Botswana some 2 years earlier. They had been coming to Botswana and working in the Francistown area. They had been looking for ways to meaningfully engage with churches in Botswana. But it had been a frustrating time, and there was talk of pulling out altogether. Some more dots were connected. Some more streams flowed together. Jeff Williams, a member of Johnson Ferry, and Ricky Wheeler, their missions pastor, were introduced to Open Baptist Church through an appointment by God, not a coincidence. God began a thunderous avalanche of actions leading us to where we are today, a tumultuous rushing together of the outpouring of God's grace to form floodwaters that no one could stop. Time then commissioned Donna to locate partners for Open Baptist. Ken Gallion from Call to Africa was a guest at that very meeting and immediately volunteered to help with training for Face the Nation 2007. Meanwhile, back in Botswana, the germinated plant of Face the Nation was taking on a life of its own. The Ministry of Education opened its doors and warmly welcomed Face the Nation. David Oduno, a lecturer at School of Discipleship 2006, was brought on board as the CEO of Face the Nation. At the end of 2006, the step of faith was taken to increase the volunteer program from 24 to 100 and to aim to work in 27 government schools countrywide. Only 8 had been reached in 2006. A leadership team of 5 regional facilitators was appointed. In the US, more and more partnerships were being forged. Dwayne Moore, Thomas Young, and Wes Cantrell came on board and committed to help with training. Friendships have been forged and lives have been changed forever. Johnson Ferry Baptist Church and time are the cornerstone of this partnership model. At the beginning of 2007, Randy and Kitty Trail, who had coordinated the School of Discipleship, announced that they were returning to the States to